everyone, to an extraordinary podcast/live video streaming experience, presented by fentanylsolution.org in collaboration with the compassionate minds at the Fentanyl Solution Group. Get ready for engaging conversations, expert insights. Welcome to Fentanyl Solution, advocating for lives, inspiring change.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to Fentanyl Solution syndicated podcast and live stream. I'm Janice Celeste. I'm your host, and I'm the president and CEO of both fentanylsolution.org and Fentanyl Solution Group. Now, we are a national nonprofit organization based in Orange County, California. I want to tell all of your followers about the show. Share the link. After all, sharing is caring. The replay will be available after the broadcast. Know that our hashtag for the show is hashtag Fentanyl Solution. Today, we are talking about fentanyl test strips and everything you need to know about it. We have Bryce Batchelor. Hi, Bryce. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Janice. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Let's tell the readers and listeners to our podcast and our blog, where this will be posted later, why are fentanyl test strips an important part of the fentanyl crisis?
Fentanyl test strips are an important part of the fentanyl crisis because they are a drug checking tool that allows people to check their substance to try and identify whether their substance has fentanyl or not. This is an extremely powerful tool due to the fact that fentanyl is winding up in, just about every substance these days in the United States and Canada and North America, unfortunately. Lots of substances, whether it's being put in there intentionally, like synthetic opioids, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a fake pharmaceutical pill that could be, Percocet, Norco, Xanax, Valium, any prescription pill that's illicitly manufactured, oftentimes will purposely include fentanyl, and then other street drugs like MDMA, cocaine, amphetamines, methamphetamines will oftentimes have fentanyl in there, typically due to accidental contamination. So it's important for people to have the ability to test these substances because whether we like it or not, people are going to continue to do drugs. And because of the current situation we're facing, it's important that people have access to these tools to make sure that they don't potentially overdose, whether they had an idea that the fentanyl could have been in there or not. So it's important for people to have these tools.
So just let's to break it down. So someone wants to get a Percocet and they get it illegally through the black market, and the pill will look like a Percocet, but will it have Percocet in it, or just will have Percocet and fentanyl, or just be fentanyl? Like when you test it, you have no way of knowing if there's any other medication in it besides fentanyl, correct?
Correct. There are other tests that you can use to identify whether the substance has, some other substance essentially in that drug. But because fentanyl is such a huge issue, people are primarily looking to see if fentanyl is in that substance because, they want to make sure they're not going to die taking this substance. Right. So there are other tests available, but because of how dangerous fentanyl is, people are primarily interested in checking their substance for fentanyl because of the obvious reasons. So,
no, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, if I want a Percocet, I don't want fentanyl in there. So these test strips are really good. So I can actually just test my pill beforehand to make sure that I'm not going to die from fentanyl, because it only takes like 3 grains of salt worth to kill someone like me who has no tolerance to fentanyl, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The lethal dose for fentanyl is between 1 and 3 milligrams. The LD50, which is the average lethal dose, is about 2 milligrams. 2 milligrams is, like you said, a couple grains of salt, maybe the size of a sesame seed. And if that amount of fentanyl is wound up in your substance and you end up taking it, it could kill you. So it's extremely potent and extremely dangerous, especially to someone that has no tolerance to opioids.
And that is called a fentanyl poisoning. It's not an overdose if you don't know what you're taking and you didn't consent to taking it. Isn't that correct?
Correct. So there's 2 issues when it comes to fentanyl. Some people are dying from fentanyl overdoses and they know that they're consuming fentanyl. Lots of people, though, are dying from fentanyl poisonings, which is when they're taking a substance unknowingly that contains fentanyl. fentanyl poisonings are comprised of, or essentially are occurring very often, and comprise about half of the fentanyl overdoses that are occurring in the United States, somewhere around 50 to 60%, to my knowledge currently. But yeah, a lot of these overdoses are occurring from people taking a substance that they didn't intend to consume fentanyl, whether it's, like I said, a synthetic opioid or other drugs like cocaine, MDMA, Xanax, etc. So,
Okay. Now, just so our readers, like I said, readers, because we have this on our blog later, but also for our listeners, um, just so you know, fentanyl is the number one killer of 18 to 45-year-olds in the United States, even more than COVID, even more so suicides, car accidents. It's the leading killer. In Orange County, where we are, it's the leading killer of teens, and all of those deaths have been fentanyl poisonings with the teens here. So this is why this is so important. I mean, we're losing so many people. Bryce, how did your company recognize the need for fentanyl test strips, and what inspired you to take action in this area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've been involved in the harm reduction space for the last couple of years. And previously, I had ran a small e-commerce business that was providing fentanyl test strips. One of the problems with the fentanyl test strips that were being provided previously is they were designed and intended for checking urine for fentanyl. And because of this, there was no instructions for people that wanted to use them for drug checking. So if people were receiving these test strips, either they would have no idea how to use them, or they would have to do their own research on how to use them. And, there was no, simple, one size fits all guide on how to test your substance for fentanyl. This was a big problem, and we wanted to create a test strip that was designed for drug checking, that allowed people to check their substance, have confidence in their ability to do so, and the ability to use that test strip within 30 seconds and know that they were using it correctly. So we did our due diligence, and we sought out different manufacturers that could produce this sort of test strip. And we performed a lab study to make sure that the test strip was adequate in testing for fentanyl. And in addition to fentanyl, fentanyl analogs, which are fentanyl-like substances that are often being manufactured and produced. We also wanted to make sure that the test strips weren't creating false positives with other substances that are commonly tested alongside fentanyl. So other drugs like cocaine, Xanax, other synthetic opioids, MDMA. We wanted to make sure that people could test those substances confidently and reliably without receiving results that could be incorrect or confusing. So we did our due diligence. We found a manufacturer that could work with us, and we're able to produce a test strip that comes with the education alongside the actual tool itself. The biggest problem, going back to what I mentioned a minute ago, is with the lack of education alongside with this tool. People were producing a tool that did work for drug checking, but the lack of education was the real gap in providing people confidence in testing their substance. So that's what we're trying to do, and we think that we've done it relatively well. We've grown a lot in the last year, and we're still learning every single day. So,
I think it's wonderful. So because I can see how this can save lives, but let me ask you about this. So you have a Xanax or Adderall pill. How do I test it? I saw someone on camera actually take a Q-tip that was wet and rub the outside of the pill and then test it with the test strip. That's not the right way, right?
It's far from ideal, I would say.
Okay.
There's different testing methodologies, but typically people are testing pills and powders. If you have a pill, the best method of testing it would be to crush that pill up, put it in about a shot glass worth of water, and then take the test strip out, dip the test strip in the water, and within about 20 to 30 seconds, it'll give you a result positive or negative for fentanyl. One thing that's convenient about the test strip is that people still want to consume that substance. If it's a pill crushed into water, they can simply drink the water afterwards. So people are, oftentimes don't want to use it because they think, oh, I have to waste whatever product I have in order to test this, but that's not the case. You can still consume that pill if you wanted to. But, obviously gives the user the ability to test and, hopefully
Okay.
gives them confidence to make the right decision. So,
Okay. And if that pill is negative, does that mean all the other pills I might have in my pocket does that mean they're safe?
no, not necessarily.
Okay. Okay. So you should test every pill, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what about powder? How you would do the same thing? We put powder in the water, like
Yes.
like cocaine.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So with powder, you would take a scoop of the powder and put it into about a shot glass worth of water. We have micro scoops, or if you take a key and just take a scoop and put it into about a shot glass worth of water, that typically does work. The more powder, the better, because it is possible that fentanyl is in one portion of the bag, and if you take a scoop out, you could miss it. But there's two different testing methods that we recommend. There's kind of the quick and dirty, and then there's the more reassuring. The quick and dirty would be to take the bag and make sure that the powder is uniform within the bag, and then take a scoop or maybe two scoops, put it in water, and then test for fentanyl. Because of the sensitivity of the test strips, even if there's a tiny trace amount of fentanyl, it should be able to catch it. The other method is better, which would be to dissolve the entire bag into water. But people that are using powdered substances oftentimes will not want to dissolve the entire bag of substance. So we recommend that they do that, but in the real world, there's no perfect solution. So we recommend, testing rather than doing nothing at all. So, but we're confident that with the ability of the test strips, or with the sensitivity of the test strips, that, testing even part of the bag is going to yield good results the vast majority of the time.
Okay. They can drink it, but what is the likelihood of them then using a needle to inject it into their body? You're in a harm reduction space, so does that happen more often than not?
So for people that are using drugs intravenously, there's a different testing method for that as well, actually. Typically, people will take a substance, put it in water, and just dissolve the substance, and then cook it in a cooker, or have some receptacle where they're then going to suck the substance up into a syringe. Typically, once they put the substance into a receptacle, they mix their substance in it, they pull it into a syringe. What you would then do is take that receptacle and fill that up with water. And because of the residue of the substance that was in that receptacle previously, there should be enough in there to test. So then once the receptacle's empty, you put more extra water in there, and then you put the test strip in there, and it'll tell you if there's fentanyl in it or not.
Okay. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's essentially the methodology for testing substances for people that are using drugs intravenously.
Okay. Now you also now have, correct me if I'm wrong, xylazine test strips, because I know that's what be my concern with people now using them intravenously to inject, because I know that I've read where the injection point is. A lot of times people using xylazine, which is also known as tranq or the zombie drug, will get necrosis in the area of the injection.
Yes, that is correct. Xylazine has become a somewhat more recent phenomenon in the United States. It's affecting the East Coast primarily. It's spreading westward, though, over the last several months. And yes, we do have a test strip that allows users to test their substance for fentanyl, not fentanyl, for xylazine, fentanyl and xylazine. Most of the people that are running into xylazine are people that are using synthetic opioids. So people that oftentimes are knowingly consuming fentanyl will have some mixture of xylazine within their substance. The reason why it's important to check your substance for xylazine is because, as you mentioned, it can cause very, very serious skin infections, and also can put you into an overdose, not fentanyl related, but just the xylazine. And if you go into an overdose on xylazine, there is no medication or reversal drug like naloxone for fentanyl. So because of this, it's causing really serious issues, and not just one issue of an overdose, but also causing additional skin infections, and is at this point not very treatable, unfortunately. So we think it's really important to provide test strips for people to make sure their substance doesn't contain xylazine because of the new issues that it's presenting.
Right. You mean that there's no reversal agent for xylazine? You said fentanyl, but it's for xylazine. Yeah, because we have naloxone for fentanyl. All right, that's interesting. So one of the things I really like about Wisebatch is the tracking, and you also have the QR code. So can you tell people about that, about the tracking and how the QR code on the packaging works?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just grab a test strip here, but here's a fentanyl test strip that Wisebatch created. So we have quick, simple instructions on the back, which is right here. And then we also have the QR code up here, which leads to the resources section on our website, where we have different infographic and video guides that cover the different testing scenarios. We have guides in English and Spanish. We also have guides for xylazine testing as well. In addition to the guides that we provide, we have a reporting system that allows people to anonymously report a positive test for fentanyl or xylazine. We are able to then take that data and provide it back to whatever community partners we're working with, whether that be a local health department, nonprofit organization, state health department, really whoever wants access to that data. We're able to provide them essentially zip code locational data on where the substance was being used, and also what type of substance was being used and whether it was contaminated with fentanyl or xylazine. So, people can take this information, alert their community, or, potentially use this as data to, obtain additional grant funding for their programs. So we think that it's a good additional tool that, we provide free of charge, and want to make sure that people have access to just more information and continue to learn about this epidemic that's happening.
Okay. Now, after the show, I want to talk to you about that a little bit more. So just hang out after the broadcast ends. We'll have a little chat about it. But so basically how it works is that I'll have my pill. It tests positive for fentanyl. Do I use the QR code to get to the site to report that data?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
On the back of the test strip, there's a little blurb on there that basically says, report a positive test here. So you can scan the QR code, goes to the website, and you can then navigate to the report a positive test section and report a test.
That's fantastic. And I do this anonymously, right? I don't need my information in there, or do they need to know? They just need to know the zip code, correct?
Yeah, we don't require any information to be submitted. Everything is optional, and the only thing that we ask is for the intended substance, or what the substance was supposed to be, whether it was contaminated with fentanyl or xylazine, a picture of the substance if they want to include that, and then a zip code, and then notes if they want to include that as well.
All right. Now, it's not legal in every state. Why is that? I know it's legal here in California to use fentanyl test strips, but not every state has adopted this. Like we have Texas, I think Iowa. I think it's about 5 different states that they're looking at it as drug paraphernalia, correct?
Yeah, so there's still a couple states that are holding out in regards to legalizing fentanyl test strips. Fortunately, it's been moving in the right direction over the last 12 months or so. But essentially, fentanyl test strips are considered illegal drug paraphernalia in some states. They're considered illegal drug paraphernalia simply due to the law that is written in that state in regards to drug paraphernalia. So typically most states will have a drug paraphernalia law that will list a couple different things that are defined as drug paraphernalia. And typically it'll be something along the lines of drug paraphernalia is something that's considered something that can be used to weigh, conceal, measure, test a drug. And because of the literature that is written in these specific state laws, any state law that has that definition of to test a drug is considered drug paraphernalia. So what states have actually had to go and do is to go amend that drug paraphernalia law to basically create a caveat that says, for fentanyl test strips, this is not illegal. And some states have done it for xylazine as well. So yeah, it was kind of an unintended consequence of previous laws that were written, but because of the issue that fentanyl is creating, most states have gone and reversed this law, and states like Florida actually just reversed the law. I want to say it was about 3 weeks ago. And then I believe Arkansas reversed it as well just a couple weeks back. I want to say Mississippi as well. Those are just recent states, but within this year alone, there's been at least probably 10 states that have reversed the law. So it's trending in the right direction, and I think the rest of the states will eventually follow suit. And there's also federal legislation that's being worked on for this issue as well.
Well, that's really necessary because these strips can save lives. Do you have some real world examples of how your strips have saved people or worked in the field?
Yeah. I've actually had people that we've distributed test strips to come back to me and say that we provided these test strips out, and that they've had other users come back and report to me that I tested a pill and it came back positive for fentanyl, and it probably saved my life. So we've had several people that we distribute test strips to come back and report things like this and different stories along those lines. So it's always encouraging, and gives us gratitude to hear that people are using the tools that we're providing, and that it's actually creating a legitimate positive impact in the real world. So
you guys, you heard it here first. Fentanyl test strips actually save lives. I don't know if it's first, but you hear it now. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to keep saying it. Now, we're getting to the end of the show. I want people to know how to get your test strips, but do you have a message about the test strips for listeners who may be skeptical about the effectiveness or necessity of fentanyl test strips as part of the response to the crisis?
I would say that there's a lot of data in regards to the efficacy of the test strips. So I would encourage anyone that's skeptical to do a little bit of research, and they're always more than welcome to contact us to if they have any questions about the efficacy of the test strips. We have test results for our test strips, and we're going to have those published on our website soon. And anyone that wants to obtain test strips can get them at wisebadge.com, and we also have a multitude of different partners in states all around the country. There's different health departments and needle exchanges that we're providing test strips through, whether it be nonprofits like End Overdose or Harm Reduction Circle. Those are based in California, but ship nationwide. And oftentimes you can get them for free through those resources. So there's lots of different resources to be able to obtain test strips. So everyone should be able to have access to these tools, and should be able to obtain them for, very cheap or for free. So that's what we believe.
Well, we're going to be distributing them, and we are distributing them now, but we're going to have them on our website too, so that people can get to you through your website from our website, and they can buy the test strips, or they can get, if they go to where we're handing out naloxone and out Wise Badge test strips, because they're one of our favorite brands because of that QR code and tracking. So thank you for doing that. Bryce, I want to thank you for joining us today. This is important information. I have like 20 more questions I could ask you. So, I hope you get to come back on the show again so that we can follow up, especially with the xylazine test strips rolling out. And as we know, that's going to be a big problem too. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us, Janice, or having me rather. Thank you. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
Sure. You just hang out for a minute. All right. And I want to thank all of you for participating and listening to Fentanyl Solution. We will be on Facebook Live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Don't forget to follow us there, and on Instagram, Twitter. We're at Fentanyl Soul, and our website is Fentanyl Solution, singular solution, fentanylsolution.org. Be sure to leave your comments and rate our podcast. Until next time, remember, you are the solution. Take care. Let's go. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of awareness and compassion. Together, we can make a difference. This has been Fentanyl Solution, advocating for lives, inspiring change. Stay safe, and remember, you are the solution.
Let's put Bryce back up, Christine, so I can hear him and he can hear me. Well, all right, Bryce, now that was great. Let me end this broadcast. I think we're still live. Hold on. Ha ha ha.